he is sitting next door to me. There's the studio shot. There he is.
Sit up straight. Hang on. There we go.
We're sharing a microphone. We're hoping it'll stay working.
I'm going to put my jacket on. You've got a jacket on.
You are live now, so they've noticed.
No, it
the
doesn't
shirt.
matter. I'm going to go. There we go. I've just got a rollicking from my wife for looking a mess on camera. So I won't look as smart as you, but there we go.
You look beautiful.
Thank you very much.
That's just, Heston only wears black shirts predominantly. T-shirts certainly.
Yeah.
I think he has some white and some black. Like I'm almost always only wear a white shirt. I just can't be asked with the hassle. And where do you sit on this simplicity of clothing?
I can go both ways on that. I can
have a
sometimes
black T-shirt
stand.
or a white shirt.
I can. But I might standardise on one thing. Interestingly, I get obsessed with socks. Or I need to have the right pairs of socks, and I seem to have a load of similarly coloured socks. And I just thought of this absolute liberation would be just to, why do I need paired socks? All the hours of my life I've spent sorting them into pairs. Just pick 2 socks out and put them on. If they don't exactly match, literally nobody's going to notice, unless one's pink or something.
There's a company called the Odd Sock Company that literally sells people completely different.
I'll be in a very ADHD way on the bus home. I'll be ordering something like 300 pairs or not pairs as soon as possible.
I have gone the other way on this, so I bought multiple pairs of the exact same black sock, so that I never have to pair socks again. And then I bought the exact, and then white, and I was done here. And then at a certain point, like you try, who knows where they go, but they start to decline. And you bought a few more, it's not the same. So now I operate a policy of they all go, or they all stay.
I was writing the Guardian today. Meeting you is fantastic, but terrifying and unsettling as well. It's like meeting myself. I mean, I've got a similar system with my boxer shorts and pants, where I put them in a tube with a hole at the bottom, and so there's a perfect rotation. So when I've worn them, obviously wash them and iron them, put them in the top, so it comes out of the bottom. So I don't wear one pair more than another.
That is wonderful. And so where did you get your
tube? I got my mum to make it for me.
Again? Yes. Wait. So the reason I knew when we met in Chiswick was because there was an article saying you took your laundry to your mum.
Yeah.
Who's cooking dinner?
My mum's cooking. Look, I cooked for her last night. Look, so I don't. But she's,
she made your extraordinary wardrobe.
Well, she made a similar one to put, to put plastic bags in. So when you use them, so you can take one out the bottom, shopping bags and stuff. So I thought I want one of those. I want one of those for my pants, and she delivered, as she always does, and actually didn't question me on that, and nor did my wife. I must say, listening to Heston talk about, I thought it was a brilliant line about what people call tidying up, I call hiding things. I mean, I know exactly what he means. However, I must say that my wife, who's a tower of strength, she does put things away, but she always knows where things are. I say, Kath, where is it? She will know. Even if she hasn't tidied it away herself, she will have remembered where it was. Oh yeah, that's under there or on top of there. Yes, I saw that there. So I've got a perfect wing woman there.
Well, that's why my wife is like equally wonderful. I've persuaded the children that my wife's power skill is finding things. So dad's good for fixing things, mum's good for finding things. She is not happy about this at all, but it does relieve me of the obligation to go find things, of which I am absolutely terrible. So I was supposed to do an introduction, I didn't. I'm going to try and attempt to sort of wind back time and actually do that. Heston, Adrian. It's only going downhill from here.
Can I just tell you something funny? I've just been on ITV London on the local news talking about my book. I've written a book, this isn't a book plug, but I've written a book called The Good Drinker, about moderating alcohol. Anyway, I had a long briefing talk with them and talked about, so you got 3 minutes, fine. So it went live and it says, Adrian Chiles joined us. He's just written a book called The Big Drinker. I went, no, it's not. It's The Good Drinker. I mean, The Big Drinker would probably sell more copies, but anyway, the devil's often in the detail of these things.
You also did a whole documentary specifically about that topic, I think. So, you're extraordinary man. You've done an enormous amount. I'm a secret, not so secret because I told you, fan, having watching you in your working lunch days and then on, and it is a real privilege, and I'm loving meeting you.
I don't cope with compliments very well. I don't know what face to put.
I've got two options there. One's camera on you.
Okay. But just keep it. No more compliments. I can't take any more.
Well, that's fair enough. I think the intro was very short.
Okay.
We're straight into questions.
Okay.
Look, the key aspect of being here is talking about ADHD.
Yeah.
Actually, as I can do one more compliment. As I've got you face to face, the article that you wrote yesterday in the Guardian was something completely special. It was
good. Thank you
really
very much.
it was beautiful. If people haven't read it, do read it. It's a beautiful, insightful, and it. I particularly loved the way you were just so happy. One, it was very, very beautiful, but the way you talked to us, you were learnt, and the learning you talked about, the evolution of your understanding of ADHD, and how just so matter of fact, there's some things you said there's some things you thought you now no longer think, and just being so evolving in your thinking, I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, well, it's just I think I see ADHD. We see everything really through the prism of your own experience and your own class, I suppose. And I just, so I can just see so many lives sort of obliterated by ADHD, and I don't know. There's a few of us sort of clever dicks, I suppose, who managed to find ways of channeling it. We might drive ourselves to distraction, and torment's probably a strong word, but it's really sort of innovating and everything. But we sort of get there. There's plenty of ADHD people who don't get anywhere where they really want to be, So I'm just sort of more mindful of that, and how, I would literally stop my treatment, if it meant that 5 people got it who would otherwise weren't going to get to see a specialist, who weren't going to get medicated, who weren't going to get coaching, who weren't going to go and get the diagnosis in the first place, because actually, they need it more than me, probably.
Well, it's not a competition, so we're
I know, I understand that.
Your support here, and we've obviously got this joint goal that we want to change the difficulty of getting assessments in the UK, in the world. That people not being picked up, not getting the opportunity to understand what ADHD is, not getting the assessment to understand about themselves, and not getting the support and the options for them. So I think what would be great, and for people that don't know, to learn your ADHD story, from the first inkling of ADHD to now.
Yeah, there's a slight sort of kink in the story, is that I suffer from, I suppose, anxiety and depression, and I had quite a lot of sort of counselling, and then one day the counsellor said, I think you might want to be tested for ADHD, and he said he knew a specialist who did some private work but also worked in the NHS, and he could see me. So I had one session with him, then I came back and had another session. And then, as I remember it, this psychiatrist said, "Well, I think you might have, you might have ADHD, but you've got to be a bit careful with the medication. You've got to see you've got slightly elevated blood pressure, and it can impact upon your blood pressure. So come back and see me sometime." That's how I remember it. And then I got a bill the following day for £1,600 or something for the 2 sessions. I thought, this is private medicine gone mad, and I forgot about it. And then 3 years later, I sort of cracked up for a number of reasons completely. and I had a brilliant CBT, cognitive behavioural therapist, who saved me really. She used to be a GP, actually, and she's become she got into CBT, and she said, "Have you ever been tested for ADHD?" So I told her the story I just told you, and she said, "Well, can you get the notes from that clinic?" And incredibly, 3 years on, they still have the notes, and they sent her all the notes, and within those notes was a 6-page letter addressed to me 3 years before that I was never sent. That I just never got it by email or hard copy. And this letter was brilliant. It basically said, "I can see the root of all your problems are ADHD, for this reason, and the other reason. You need to come back and see me so we can work out how to treat it. And if you want to know more, you need to read a book called Delivered from Distraction," I think it was called. So, and this staggered me. So I got hold of this book. And the minute I started reading this book, my life changed. Like every single bit, down to the most absurd little detail, was me. It was written by an American psychiatrist, and every little, just every page, I remember I was just slack-jawed. It's just the most bizarre thing. It's like a little something he said about he had this compunction when he was having a normal conversation. And there was a drink on the table, he had almost unbearable compunction to throw it in the face of the person he was talking to. And I'd had that, and it was the most bizarre thing ever. I had it with some people I really liked.
Take this man's drinks away.
At a particular time, but it was just bizarre. And so I became more and more convinced, and then I thought, I better check this out. I spoke to 3 people close to me. There's a TV producer friend from West Belfast. There was my then 16-year-old daughter, and also my PA, who lives in the Midlands, woman a bit older than me. And they all said, rubbish. And then I gave them a couple of pages from the book, which was 20 symptoms of adult ADHD, and all 3 of them had the same reaction. They all read it. So my daughter, my PA, and my TV colleague, they all read these 2 pages and said, "Yeah, you've got it. Go on, off you go. Go get yourself sorted out." So I went back to the psychiatrist. I had an ECG to test I was okay to take the meds, and then, things have improved markedly since. This was 3.5 years ago now, and it absolutely did change my life. It's the medication is not an overnight cure, and it has to be coupled with some degree of, you've got to really coach yourself to get yourself out of some hardwired habits, and you've really got to work at it, and you've got to be you've got to be patient, but just the diagnosis, just making sense of yourself, it just is such a relief. It's extraordinary.
You've talked obviously particularly, so it's something we see very, very often is people having anxiety and depression, and being diagnosed with that, and the underlying is ADHD. And there's some thought that the fact that people don't know they've got ADHD and are struggling, and I don't know if you heard earlier the sort of maze metaphor, that you're in a with undiagnosed ADHD, you're in a maze with the lights off, you're banging into walls, knocking things over, and you're unable to navigate your life, and you see others seemingly just swimming through, and the diagnosis turns the lights up, and suddenly you can navigate, you can move forward. And people talking about that having a huge impact on the anxiety and depression that they've developed. Like, how's the impact for you been on that?
Well, I think it's been profound. I only think of it in those terms since the diagnosis. But the maze metaphor is apt for me. Although I wouldn't say the lights are off. I think with me, it's just like too many options. I can see you go into a maze where I can go this way, and this way, and this way, and I go that way, and then I'm supposed to be going that way, but then I go that way, and then I sort of get lost up that way and find my way back, and then go the other way.
Do I need to evolve it to, the James Bond Hall of Mirrors?
Yeah, it's something like that, and I just think there are just too many options, and you end up sort of taking them all and never, and never getting to, if you're not careful, never getting from A to B with whatever you're supposed to be doing. And and I think, I mean, it's just exhausting as much as anything else. I was fascinated during lockdown, when the lockdown actually was incredibly good for me. And to some extent, I think lockdown, I heard described by one sort of public health specialist, but a skeptic about lockdown, in the sense that she said it was a middle-class luxury. So I think to some extent, I understood what she meant, but for me, it was perfect because it just took away my options. So that maze became a lot simpler. There was loads of places I couldn't go, loads of people I couldn't see, loads of things I couldn't do. So I could just sit at home. I could be at home. I could just be. I couldn't even buy that many ingredients for cooking, so I couldn't overcomplicate matters by cooking 17 different dishes on a Monday night. It was just, the opportunities were limited. And I found that insanely relaxing. Wow, I could just read, just sit still, because I had to, almost by law I had to. And I found that, I just found it, I just found it so interesting. I thought, when lockdown finishes, I'm gonna stay like this. I'm gonna learn from this. But God, while I'm in London, I don't think I can, because the options all come crowding in. I need to take myself away, where there's just sort of less going on. A friend of mine is blind. He's got a guide dog, and he works for the Guide Dogs Association as well. And he was telling me how guide dogs they just don't last as long in London. Their working lives are shorter in London, I suppose other big cities, than they are in smaller towns. And he said they just get worn out. And I think it's that overstimulation. I think they're sort of overstimulated, and I think we all are in London. But I think particularly if you've got ADHD, it's modern life, modern city life, but modern life generally with social media is just a horrendously effective vector for ADHD, where you are advertising, information is coming, the options are there all the time. I mean, on every little mobile phone, a smartphone, there is every bit of knowledge ever acquired by mankind in the history of mankind's existence. Everything is on that one phone. Now, if you've got, and sorting that out in your mind, if you've got ADHD, there's just too much excitement there almost. There's too many options.
No, and have you retained any? So post lockdown, you talked about all the options swamping back in.
Yeah.
Have you managed to curtail some of those?
I've managed. Yes, not enough. I've managed to carve out a bit of space, to keep still. But in the end, I still generally find it sort of pretty impossible. I need to find things which I'd call, allow me to enter the paradise of complete absorption, where, and I've found odd ways of doing this. Motorcycling is one, which is sort of counterintuitive, because there you have to be hyper-focused, and you can't multitask. You can't take phone calls. You can't start buying things on your mobile phone. You can't listen to anything. It's just you in your helmet with your raging thoughts, and then you're 10, 20, 30 miles into a journey, and you just get into a zone. Stacking logs is another one. It's a bizarre one, but stacking logs I find incredibly soothing. Ironing is fantastic. Just that's sort of where I find it. So I'm just completely absorbed. Yeah, well, it's coming apart a bit, but it's just finding those. I'm never going to be I'm never going to be completely still. I don't think. And that word's heavily weighted for me because I sort of became a Catholic at the age of 39 because I'm not from a religious family, but I was always quite a believer. And I went to see this priest about it, and at the time I didn't really know what I was doing, but my friend said go and see this priest. So I met this priest, the late Father Ben O'Rourke, and I said, I'm learning the sacraments, I'm learning, when to stand up and sit down in Mass. He said, forget all that. He said most of 98% of that is just superstition. It's a priest talk. And then he said, look, this is just the Holy Spirit moving with you in its own way. And I'm sort of thinking, weirdo. Then I'm thinking, all right then, I'll have a bit of that, why not? And he said, look, the answer to it is just be still. Just promise me you'll be still and all the answers will come to you. And, it was a massive moment in my life. At that moment, the wrong priest, and there are plenty of bad ones, could have just turned me off it completely. But that, I was I was in there. But I've never managed to comply with the central thing he said to me, or 15 years ago now, just be still. But my alternative to that, to be still, if I just try and meditate, it's traumatic. It's nothing less than traumatic. I just can't do it. But if I can find something, motorcycling, ironing, stacking logs, random as it might seem, then that is the next best thing.
Talking about sort of on religion, so Heston and I in that interview, he talked about it a little. He talked about whether or not we were all in heaven right now, but just mucking it up. And my response it always occurred to me that people are living in their own heaven or hells, and particularly mental health, and notably depression. Meaning people are living in a hell, and the importance of mental health care and giving people support. I suppose I wondered what your view was on people. Are they walking around in their own? Is this heaven and we're mucking it up?
I think it's like any.
Said you're religious.
I think look, it feels like. I think hell's a bit strong, but you do get sort of tormented by it and exhausted by it, and you can't get anything done. And then I don't know. Your own hyper focus. Your hyper focus can be on your own shortcomings if you're not careful, and then you can really go down into some very deep holes indeed. But I think we still have free will. It's not. We've got a predisposition to this thing called ADHD, and there are bits of it that can be channeled, and there's bits of it that can be dealt with, and you can't just give into it. I mean, sometimes I accuse my wife of being a bit too kind and understanding to me. So you've got to draw a line here. I mean, sometimes I'm just behaving badly and being a sulky, miserable grump. And she said, all right, it's your neurodiversity. I said, oh, come on. And that, I mean, that in a way it has the dire effect, because then I feel a bit ashamed. So you've still, you've still got to try and channel it and still try and do your best to sort of break your day up. I mean, there was just one little thing I saw somewhere. It was just some life coaching tweet or something. It just said, if you divide the day up into the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. Now you've had a bad morning. Then, all right, you've lost the morning. Draw a line. Just try and win the afternoon. It's like cricket's played in 3 sessions: the morning session, and then the after lunch, between lunch and tea, and then between tea and close of play. So just win 1 or 2 of those sessions. That's how I kind of feel about my day now. If one bit doesn't go well, clean line. Let's get organised. Really try and figure out, right, what do I want to achieve in the next couple of hours. If that was straightforward to do, then we wouldn't have a problem in the first place. Because it'd be like making a list and doing everything on the list, which you and I and Heston and everyone else knows. You know, it's difficult to explain to other people, but it just doesn't work for reasons, you know, I can't explain. But just small wins.
Something you've been open about talking is about medication. It actually makes you, you're already special, but like makes you extra special because essentially nobody does. And it's incredibly important because we have people who feel the stigma of taking medication so much they don't consider it, when you want people to have an open consideration just on the basis of does this help you or not, like as you would surgery or you know, other medical interventions. So I suppose I wanted to ask the specifics of how does medication impact you?
The simplest way I can put it is it gives me a feeling pretty similar if anyone's addicted to caffeine. You'll know what I mean, where you wake in the morning, you're groggy, you're useless, and then you have a cup of strong coffee and suddenly the world seems a better place. It's slightly like that, but on a more sustained level. It sort of lasts for hours, and the way it just, I mean, I don't fully understand how, as it were, it just makes me feel a lot better. I get things done, I think, but similarly to drinking a lot of caffeine, it can just, you know, energize you to and just give you a million different ideas which you can start doing all at the same time. So again, you've got to be careful, you've got to channel, I mean, like ADHD itself, you've got to channel the good bits as best you can, but generally it's just a wholly good thing which just makes me more able to deal, you know, to deal with myself and deal with the world. It almost feels like a cheat that I've got this, you know, magic pill. You know, I've also taken citalopram in the past, and you could, you know, it's a standard sort of antidepressant, and there's a lot of evidence it doesn't really have any great effect on you, and I never knew whether it did or not, or whatever. But with this, there is not a scintilla of doubt. I'm a different person from like half an hour after I've taken it onwards. Which I suppose it's quite frightening in itself. But you know, look, I wouldn't be without it, and you know, and I'm not squeamish about talking. I don't know why I'm not. Perhaps I'm just naive. I thought that's the truth, and the truth sets you free. But as we discussed, and I mentioned in that Guardian article, I'm not in the kind of business where anybody really cares in a good way. Or say they don't mind. You know, as a freelance writer or broadcaster, you know, whatever I'm taking, whatever I'm suffering from, or, you know, that I've got, if I can deliver a TV or radio program, or I can deliver an article, if I can do it, then that's fine. You know, they've got no, although, you know, I work for some very kind people, you know, at the BBC and the Guardian and other places, but, you know, they've got no long-term duty of care to me in a way that's going to make an HR department jumpy. So it's not like I'm going for an interview at a merchant bank, or, you know, some great big responsible corporate-ish type job where my ADHD-ness or the medication I take is going to be held against me. And I understand through you, bluntly, just how much more of a change that is for people.
No, well, thank you. And it was I really enjoyed talking to you. And on the cheating, like it's such an interesting, different perspective. So I know people who like obviously listen to you and saying like it feels like you're cheating, and then I know other people who talk about saying like, gosh, this is how everyone else is just normally.
Yeah. Like
this is their world, and then being quite angry about the fact that, and the fact they've been deprived of it and deprived of, and so they've taken a completely different perspective where they're angry.
I mean, that's my Catholic guilt kicking in there, I think. And the psychiatrist put that to me very forcefully when I last told him, when I'd come up with this self-flagellating cheat business. He said, look, it's just getting you up to the level everyone else at. For goodness sake, just sort of, forgive yourself. But then I read cynic saying, well, of course you're feeling good in the morning. You're dropping an amphetamine, before you've had your breakfast every day. It wouldn't feel good. And maybe you're right. I shouldn't take any notice. I know, but look, it comes from guilt about being privileged. I feel it feels. The more I learn about it, the more I feel it's a privilege to be able to afford the treatment. It was all private. The CBT was £100 a shot. Seeing the psychiatrist was twice that. This is serious. This is serious money. And way beyond the means of most people. And those people are going to wait forever for treatment.
It's a big reason why we're fighting to change the resourcing so that people do get assessments and treatment and the opportunity for that understanding and that support if they choose it. Because I definitely don't think of it as cheating. And I wanted to sort of convey that very strongly. Because,
no, absolutely.
And the only part where in particular, that point on privilege, and again, there are people in yours and my situation as adult diagnosed ADHDers who are very angry that they weren't picked up earlier, that for the life that could have been, the different life path, how less difficult it would be. I suppose I feel just grateful that I'm in a time when it can be picked up and that there are medication options and that it's been so life-changing for me that if that hadn't happened, it would be...
I can see clearly now the difference it would have made if I'd had a diagnosis earlier as a kid and after it'd been treated properly. But I can, it wasn't a life or death matter, and I can hardly say I haven't been successful in life. It just would have made things a lot easier. And I just suppose, instead of talking about feeling guilty about it, I suppose then your duty is to find ways of those less fortunate than ourselves of getting access to this treatment. Because I think for them it is existential. Now, not necessarily in terms of taking their own lives, but in terms of the quality of their lives and being able to put food on their own tables, and not running into bad behaviour and so on and blighting their own lives. Then they need help. We just need some kind of infrastructure to talk to them and treat them.
Yeah, we need, as we talked about, the wait lists across the UK is absolutely outrageous. We have areas of the country where there's no adult ADHD service at all. We know an area in Scotland where the child service is only seeing children who are in crisis, where crisis means that they are suicidal. We know that the research tells us that 1 in 10 men or boys with ADHD will at some point try and take their own life. That is 1 in 4 women or girls with ADHD will at some point try and take their own life. And that shows how difficult living with ADHD is. And when you were talking earlier about that difficulty, that's what I was thinking about those people. And something as we've talked about, the majority of the money that comes into this charity has come from the parents of someone who's their son took his own life and he had ADHD and it spiraled and the impact resulted in that. And actually, why the story with Heston is so stark is that guy wanted to be a chef. He was trying to be a chef, and so we see two parallel but different paths, and it is it's something else, and it's so important that we have adults when they go to their GP saying I would like an ADHD assessment. They're not doing it because they're worried. Well, right? They're doing it because they are in trouble and they need help. And the service says, we agree you do need that assessment. See you in 2 years, see you in 3 years, see you in
But
5
even
years,
if
see you in
that's the
7
problem
years.
for the lack of psychiatrists or whatever structural issue there is there, or wrong-headed priorities or whatever, there should be something in the interim. I just wonder, there's some level of, ahead of a formal diagnosis, just a book of words or some kind of group you can go to, say, well, try this, try that, just what you... like coping strategies. If you have got ADHD, this might help you, and it'll certainly do no harm if you haven't.
We don't do coping strategies. Coping's not good enough.
Okay, sorry.
But we just do strategies.
I haven't been through the formal indoctrination and the kissing of hands.
Yes, right.
I don't know all these do's and don'ts.
No, you're fine. But I quite like saying it, like coping. Who wants to cope?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's none of our goal, and so I make it a purpose to constantly chip away at that one. Look, and your support coming here to support this, support us is a big deal. And it is you saying like you're here to wanting to change what it means to have ADHD, help support on that pressure to change diagnosis, help people get seen more quickly, and I really do thank you so much for that.
Well, it's at least something done.
We've very sadly got to wrap up now. I'd honestly like to just keep going. And on.
Do you know what? I think I'm looking forward to our wives getting together. You should record that meeting.
And
then we'll watch it from behind the screen like a police interview or something, and see those two swap notes. But no, it's a pleasure anytime. I've seen some ADHD UK mugs over there, and I want one. Can I have that?
You can definitely have one, and we will also get you one with your name on. That's how much we celebrate you. Thank you so much. I wanted to I've got to go to the next thing. I don't know what we do.
Well, no, we're hair kiss. This is show business.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really wonderfully. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
See you soon.
Appreciate that.